If I look back 2 years ago, I am not the same person I was 2 years ago. If I
Yeah.
look back 6 months ago, I'm not the person I was 6 months ago. I think if we are doing the deep work, we are constantly evolving. It never ends. That's why I'm saying, like, it never ends, And I even have people say to me, Catherine, why is my shit coming up? And I'm like, because your unconscious mind is saying you're ready to deal with it. Your unconscious mind will never release anything unless you are ready and you have the resources to work through it.
Welcome back to the Max Out Show, where today I'm joined by transformational coach Catherine Plano, who is an international executive coach and founder of Rise and Thrive Global. We'll take a deep dive today into changing your mind, reinventing yourself, and becoming the leader and human being that you want to be. So, Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Max, for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm super excited to have you, and I would love to start out with your own personal transformational journey as really a segue into this art of reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
So can you take us back for a moment to, decades ago, living in the Big Apple, and how does this moment of sort of a personal crisis actually forced you to really reinvent yourself?
Mm. So let me begin, Max. The journey never ends. It's never over. So the transformation piece is constant. And I was just speaking to someone the other day that I do journaling every single day. I do my morning pages, and the insights of the stuff that keeps coming up. And I sit there and go, really? Come on, Catherine. You've been doing this for 26 years. You've still got stuff. The thing is, it'll always come up. So I think that time in New York, my let's call it my episode, I what created the episode, which I am so grateful for, was, and I'm sure that anyone that has either owned business or is an entrepreneur will understand that sometimes when we do what we love, it never feels like we work in a day in our life. And so what we do is just keep pushing, 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 and my body and anybody's body can only take so much. And I had a pretty much breakdown. And what that did, it taught me a big lesson. So when I came back to Melbourne after that episode in New York, I literally was bound at home for about 12 months because of these ongoing, and they were panic attacks, which I'd never experienced before. And so, really, I experienced burnout to the max. But what it did do is allow me to invest time with self and really go within. And this is how my book came to life. It's getting to the heart of the matter because I did and had to do all the deep work. I knew that I created what was present in my life at the time. And I knew that if I created what was present, I was also able to change it. But mind you, I went and saw lots of healing, natural therapies. I did everything. But it wasn't until I did the deep work that I was able to shift. So the transformation is ongoing. And the 18 months, probably the last 18 months to 2 years, I've been doing even more deep work. I've been really getting into the shadow work, which is the stuff that is hidden beneath that deeper part of our unconscious mind. And I still have these amazing limiting beliefs that pop their little head up. And so, what I am really practicing, and I'm saying practicing because it's easy for us to fall into those unconscious patterns, practicing to be conscious as much as possible, which is to be present with your thoughts and your feelings on a daily basis. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I love the story so much. And to me, it really highlights this point that, like you say, reinvention is really an ongoing process, that none of us can escape from it, right? Because if we don't engage in it on a continuous basis, right? If we don't wake up and, like you do our morning pages and our reflection and our being present, then at some point that crisis is going to hit us, right? It's going to be a struggle, a personal trauma maybe that forces us really to reinvent ourselves.
Mm,
Or on the other hand, we can really use this sort of joyfulness, right? And the excitement of wanting to get better to also reinvent ourselves.
yeah.
So I love this more proactive approach of deliberately really designing and creating your life then?
And it is a design. I mean, you're constantly reinventing yourself. If I look back 2 years ago, I am not the same person I was 2 years ago. If I
Yeah.
look back 6 months ago, I'm not the person I was 6 months ago. I think if we are doing the deep work, we are constantly evolving. It never ends. That's why I'm saying, like, it never ends. And I even have people say to me, Catherine, why is my shit coming up? And I'm like, because your unconscious mind is saying you're ready to deal with it. Your unconscious mind will never release anything unless you are ready and you have the resources to work through it, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's this quote I absolutely love, and I also saw it in your website, so I have to bring it up here, which is love isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. I think this
Yes.
is such a huge key point, right? Because so many people are waiting, right? They're walking around aimlessly, sort of waiting for that lucky star to just hit them and be like, hey, this is what you're gonna look like, right?
Yeah.
Or now, like, this is their big revelation. But
Yeah.
it really is that internal deep work of looking at your unconscious beliefs, and we're gonna talk about that later,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And really doing all of these deep things that is gonna allow you to create yourself in a new way.
Yeah. And it is important for you to focus on how do you live create your life, because, and we've all been through these. These are called development phases. And so when you look at our development phases from the time we were born right up to the age of 7, this is called our imprinting phase. So basically anything that you have experienced at that time. So anything that you watched on TV, anything that you read, parenting programming, anything you experience at school with siblings, whatever that may be, you downloaded that information as your reality. Okay, and this is where your core beliefs sit. This is your beliefs is very much about what is true to you. Okay, then the second part of our development phase is from the age of 7 to 14, and in this phase it's called modeling. And what starts happening is we start moving out of the unconscious into the subconscious, and more so start looking at what is my identity? Who am I? And this is where we start seeking external of ourselves and start looking at, who do I want to be? Who inspires me? Who do I aspire to be? And so quite often we seek external, and it might be a teacher, it might be a parent, it might be a friend at school, it might even be a superhero or whatever that may be. And what we do, that's why it's called modeling. We actually act like them, we dress like them, we talk like them. So you can see that all of these have a massive impact. And then the next stage is what we call our socialization stage, from the age of 14 to 21. And this is what we call our rebellious years. This is when we reject the nest and go forth and say, where do I belong in society? So we follow things like social media, we follow social aspects, social groups, and we are very, very driven by those. So you can see that our life at the start, and I do a piece on what's your story, when we really unpack every 7 years, you can see that a lot of stuff has been imposed on us. And some of these beliefs that we hold true today no longer serve us. But yet we don't know this. And so, because the unconscious mind, and they reside in that deeper part of our unconscious mind, that unconscious mind is constantly running anything between 95 and 98% of the day. So we are reliving all of these limiting beliefs and these fears they don't even belong to us. So once we become more aware of what's holding us back, these limiting beliefs or these fears, we can start reinventing ourselves and recreating our life that we want.
This is so hugely important, right? Because most of us aren't even aware of the fact that we're guided by the unconscious mind most of our days, right? We
Yeah.
think we're these like logical, rational creatures that make these choices deliberately, but the fact is we're not. And so becoming aware of this is really the key step to change them. So
Mm.
what does that process look like then? When people understand, like, hey, I have some limiting beliefs, I have some unconscious patterns of behavior, maybe of feeling, maybe of thinking, that they're really holding me back.
Mm.
What does the process of sort of uncovering those layers look like for
Yeah,
you?
Max, most people don't even think about it. Max, um, the thing is, when you talk about what's the process, I would say 90% to 95% of people actually don't even know that exists until they maybe come and do a class or they read something. They don't even realize that they actually have these core beliefs that are running their life, because this is how we make decisions. Our beliefs are so deeply ingrained into us. They're absolute, they're flexible, they can be generalized in statements. And it's when you hear people say, when people go, oh, I am, whatever that may be. So it could be that some of these limiting beliefs and some of these common limiting beliefs is, I am not good enough. I am not smart enough. I am not worthy. Whatever that is sentence to, I am, think about whatever that is. And I think that once you can become more conscious and listen to that internal dialogue, I always say to people, listen to the words that you speak. This will give you a clue as to what is going on at that deeper unconscious level. It's not that people will straight out say, I'm not good enough, because I don't even think that, or I'm not smart enough. It's when we start looking at what are your belief system. And belief system is, like I said, it's what is true. Very different to values. People get them mixed up. Values is what the things that are important to you. Okay, so it depends. Like, you can look at any area of your life. It could be relationship, money, career, business, whatever that may be. And when you can identify what is important to you about relationships, that's your values. Your values is what we focus on. We don't focus on beliefs. We don't focus, yet they are the drivers of our emotions. They are how we make decisions. So like the beliefs sit here, the values sit here. So a lot of people just focus on what is important to them. But what can happen is this internal conflict. So this is where, a lot of people will say, let's say, when we look at somebody's timeline, you can see that sometimes they have these repeating patterns. And we do that. We do this with what's this story exercise. What are these repeating patterns? So from the age of 0 to 7, what was the kind of like the theme of your life then? Then from 7 to 14, we go all the way up. And so we start seeing these patterns. And these repeating patterns give us a clue as to what is holding us back. So the deep work starts with understanding these internal narratives that most of the time have no evidence but hold us back. And these, when we're talking narratives, these limiting beliefs, these doubts, these fears, they act as invisible walls. So, for example, if somebody believes, and I'm just trying to think of one, if I believe, let's say I believe I'm not smart enough, okay? And then, which was one of my beliefs, by the way, Max. So it's easy for me to say that I'm not
Yeah.
smart enough. Therefore, and then let's say I value connection with people. Because I think that I'm not smart enough, when I am around individuals that I think are either a CEO, a doctor, or whatever that may be, or more intelligent than me, it will stop me doing the very thing I need to do, like connect with them or have a conversation with them. Or, for some others, it might be asking them for a pay rise, asking them to support them in a project. So you can see that sometimes our beliefs and values do not connect, they don't work together. So this is when we talk about the deep work, we have to remove the values of what is important to you and get into some of those statements. What are those I am statements? And sometimes these statements could be, I could hear it even when somebody goes, oh, this is easy. Now, the same task, another person will say, this is hard. So I love to go, well, what makes it so hard? So just listening to people's language will give you a clue as to whether they have these beliefs that they're supporting them or holding them back.
I love this so much, and I think the way you explain it, everybody can understand the vast amount of real life applications this has. That way, you have this one tiny little belief of I'm stupid, right, or I'm not smart enough, and all of a sudden, there's so many different aspects of your life that are going to be affected, right? It's going to be at work where you don't want to ask for that pay raise. It's going to be in your social relationships where you think I can't be friends with them because they're so much higher than I am, right? It's going to be in so many different levels where this one tiny belief will really restrict and limit you then.
Yeah.
So I'm super curious, like, where do you sort of draw the line, or how do you define really limiting beliefs? Do you see it in the sense of anything that's just sort of negative and holds me back from a
Yep.
goal? Um,
Yeah, a limiting belief is things like, and a limiting belief could be, and they very much go hand in hand with fear. So, limiting belief does have, they're like best friends, fear and limiting beliefs. So, let's play out, with some of the limiting beliefs that I was talking about. I'm not good enough. Or I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy, whatever I am, whatever however you want to finish your sentence. But fear is that, let's say, fear of success. Okay. And then you go, what's the fear of success? Well, I'm not smart enough. Now, I'm relating to this to me because when I came to Australia from France, I didn't know how to speak the language. So I had to go to migrant English school and a school to learn how to speak English before I was allowed to go to school. And so
wow, yeah.
you can see that I remember speaking up and doing our show and tell at school. The kids used to laugh at me because I had an accent. And kids are cool. They'll teach you a word and say, this is what it means, but really it's not what it meant. So when I was
Yeah.
using these words that were not their true meanings, I'd get in trouble
Yeah.
all the time. And so for me, just the fact that this was taking place, somewhere in my timeline, my unconscious mind said, Catherine, I will hold you back from ever feeling that way again. And thus what happens is that then I have this fear of success. And for me, it was what will happen if I'm successful? Well, it means that I will be in the light. People will be able to see me. People will be able to hear me. I will have a voice. But then what happened, Catherine, when you did that, so many years ago? And it's like I was ridiculed, I was made fun of. So you can see that when we look at some of the things that have happened over time, that a lot of the stuff, right? And I could say fear is false evidence appearing real. It has no substance unless you've got evidence to back it up. And I'll always say, what's the evidence to back it up? I can go back in my timeline when I was 7, and this is a narrative that plays on, and then I'll just say, but do you think that it holds true and value to this day? And it doesn't. But it's not till we do that deep unconscious work that we realize a lot of the stuff, whether it's doubt, fear, or these limiting beliefs, are actually holding us back or stopping us doing the very thing that we need to do as an entrepreneur, as a business person, even in relationships. I see a lot of people hold themselves back from love because of a story that lives here because they had their heart broken. Now, it's the meaning we give it. I always say, well, your heart cracked open. And what did you learn from it? And it's expanded. And they're like, well, I never looked at it that way. But it's the meaning we give every scenario, and where we can go back into that timeline and drop into wherever these limiting beliefs live or these fears and give it a different meaning. It's like the Gestalt theory. It's like, if I always use it as an example, as a pearl necklace. Once you shine light on the fear or limiting belief, it holds no more power over you because you're bringing it to the consciousness, right? And so what happens if you cut a necklace, I should say, it just falls. All the beads go everywhere. Well, that's what happens with belief system, with limiting belief systems, doubts, fears, or whatever resides in that deeper part of your unconscious mind.
I love this aspect of really shining a light on your biggest fears and your biggest challenges, right? I always think of it as like, when you're like a child and you're sleeping in bed, right? You're trying to sleep and you see this like giant shadow of a monster on the wall, right? And you're so scared of that monster gonna attack you, right? And you switch on finally the light and you realize it was just like a cat playing there, right? Or like one of your favorite toads sort of showing that shadow on the world. And that's really what it is, right? The
Yeah,
moment you shine that light on it, it disappears because you realize how stupid really is
yeah,
sometimes to keep living your life based on a belief that you was formed when you're like 6 years old.
yeah,
And I think it is so powerful then to really do this process and go through these phases and really try to understand really what's really holding me back right now and
yeah,
why is that actually.
yeah. And I think once you bring light to them, the way that you can change your limiting beliefs. So once you bring light to those limiting beliefs, you can actually change your limiting beliefs, and you can program your brain to take on those limiting beliefs. Because when you sorry, powerful, empowering beliefs, and let go of the limiting beliefs. Because once you bring light to them, you realize they either there's no evidence, they hold no value, and we even go into like what has the if I was to give it a voice, where does your voice come from? And they go, oh my God, it's the voice of my mom or my dad. Okay. And then we'll just say, so what, and so give it a voice. And so what we start doing is externalizing this limiting belief. I always say, give it a name. Because if you can give it a name, your limiting belief, it actually separates you from greater self to false self. Okay. And so when you can do that, you can start um, hearing the voice as well. You can start feeling that this limiting belief, it doesn't belong to you. And so when you start separating yourself even more so and start turning your way in a different direction, and what is it that you want to create? So let's say, for example, and I know for me, my limiting belief was I am not smart enough. Right to the point where I completed my PhD and I was still feeling that way. And so, even so,
Wow.
as achieving my PhD, why is it that I still felt like I was not smart enough? Because I didn't do the deep work. Everything was external validation to prove to me that I was smart enough. But in fact, I had to do the deep work. It doesn't matter what you do externally because it's just adding a band aid over your limiting belief. But when you actually do the deep work and really find out why, what is the purpose of your limiting belief, because everything has a purpose. Well, my purpose of my limiting belief was holding me back from being hurt again. It was keeping me safe, because that's what that deeper part of your unconscious mind does. It actually does serve a purpose. And so when you can see that its purpose was to hold me in a safe space, then I was able to work with my unconscious mind and create this new paradigm for myself. And so it was about letting go of this old narrative, which was an old narrative that was holding me back. That was actually a barrier for me to be my authentic self. Because to be your authentic self is to stand in your truth. And standing in truth can be really hard. I'm still practicing it, Max. It's not easy. But standing in truth could be as simple as I need some help. I can't do this on my own. Even during COVID, I saw leaders, when I said to them, so if you were to stand in your truth, what would you say? If you had no fear, no obstacles, no limiting belief, how would you go about it? And they'd say, I would tell my team that I've never experienced this before. I don't know how to move forward from here, but I have faith in my team. And I reckon we together can do it and get through this in a collaborative way. So sometimes being vulnerable is standing in your truth. Sometimes even saying, I don't know the answer is standing in your truth. So being our authentic self is about letting go of all of these fears, these doubts, these limiting beliefs, these narratives that reside in our timeline that no longer serve us.
Wow, there's so much great stuff there, and one thing I really wanna highlight here is that all of these things in our lives that hold us back, whether it's unconscious limiting beliefs, whether it's negative habits, unhelpful emotions or thoughts, they usually serve a purpose, right? Which is to protect us, to make us feel good, to avoid pain and suffering, or being surrounded by a group or whatever it is, and so they serve this inherent purpose, but still they make us feel less than we could be, right? And
Yeah,
so they hold us back from being who we truly could be, trying to protect this tiny little ego.
yeah,
And so like you're saying, right, befriending that, accepting the fact that, hey, this does serve a purpose of trying to make you feel good or whatever it is,
yeah,
but it's not actually really working.
yeah.
That really is of key to making sure that then you can really reframe the whole situation, right, and change it to something more empowering.
Mm. And you mentioned the word ego. Ego is what holds us back. Ego is what keeps us stuck in those fears and those doubts. And who do you think you are? And you're not, whatever that may be. You don't deserve this. Um, You should be feeling guilty because of whatever. You should be feeling shame. So ego keeps us stuck. But when we're talking about standing in our truth and be our authentic self, that is standing within, I call it soul, higher self, whatever you want to call it, our true self. So ego does, it's that little voice in your head that will tell you the stories, that will say, don't do this, Catherine. They will judge you. Don't do this, Catherine. They will reject you. Don't do this, Catherine, because you might fail. Now, when I actually hear this voice, I'm like, thank you. I really, because everything does. If we can look at it, there's a purpose and it serves us. I say thank you, but I no longer need that narrative because I believe that um, if I fail, then this is how I grow. And from failure, when I do fail, I look at what is it that I've learned? What am I going to do differently next time? And how can I share my learnings? So to me, the fear of failure doesn't exist anymore. Fear of success does a little bit sometimes. And it all comes down to fear of judgment, fear of abandonment. What will people think of me? All of those things. But when we can be conscious enough to hear that voice, we can shift the story and the narrative. And it is about befriending it. It's not about, the more that we resist it, and I used to say, my ego is not my amigo. The more that I keep pushing it away, it's going to get louder, right? But then if I have compassion and curiosity and want to integrate and work with it and do it in a loving way, get out of my head and into my heart, then you really start connecting with it. And this is where the true magic really happens, when you can start shifting and dissipating some of this matter that is around us, that exists around us, because I always say we have the power to change and create and manifest anything that we desire. We just have to believe it, and belief is a big thing. Belief in faith.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Now, Catherine, I know that you have one of probably the coolest, or at least earliest morning starts I've ever actually heard of. So, could you share with us really what that daily process now looks like for you of really developing yourself internally, starting at 3:30 a.m.
Yeah. So I get up, I light a candle. It's my ritual. I have my morning pages, and I've been doing my journaling, and I journal whatever. I just allow it to come through, whatever the words. It could be as simple as, people say, "How do you just journal?" Sometimes, look, everyone's different. Initially, I could go in and ask questions. So, um, what do I do from here? What next? How can I, whatever is going on at that time. I think questions for me, asking deep thought provoking questions, is a great way to start. This is how I got to write the book, Getting to the Heart of Matter. And this is how I healed myself, by asking a lot of questions. Now, what got you here? And how are we going to get you somewhere else, kind of thing. So the more that we can ask these questions. So journaling for me is writing, and I write for, I don't even know until I stop. Then I do a meditation, and I do a meditation until I feel I really there's a feeling that I sense that I'm ready and I'm connected and my body is still enough to then do my visualization. So I have things on these my goals on a little card. And what I do is, when I read one, I visualize myself as if it has taken place. Remember, the unconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is not real. So when I can start visualizing, this picture is becoming more colorful, more real for me. This is when I have these insights that drop in. So I write down all my ideas, because to me, these are the signs. I ask for signs. Show me the way, show me the signs. And then what I do is, with that information, I make sure that every day I do 7 things that are aligned to my goals, or 7 things that are aligned to my vision. And it could be as simple as I might write 3 emails, make 3 phone calls, and send a proposal out, whatever it may be. So that is my morning ritual. So I prepare myself for the day. What's really important is I set an intention of what I want to achieve for the day. So basically, and I do this because, Max, I was all over the place. I don't know about you, but I used to go like running, and I used to be really busy for the sake of being busy without actually realizing that I was avoiding dealing with some of the deep stuff that I had to lean into, some of the uncomfortable stuff. So that's it. So I get up, I do my morning pages, I do my meditation, I do my visualization, my goals. So I'm very clear about my goals, and then my actions for the day. So I'll set my intentions today. These are my intentions. I'm going to contact 7 clients via LinkedIn or whatever that may be. So that is my morning ritual.
I love especially this power of actually setting an intention, being absolutely completely clear on exactly how you want to live. Because the big challenge for most of us is if we don't set that intention and we just randomly wake up, right? The alarm rings and you wake up on a random Saturday and you don't have any plans for the day, you're gonna waste it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to do. There's no drive there. There's no reason to get up and start moving and start doing things because you're like, I've got all day, I don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why most people just sit on a couch, right, eating junk food and doing whatever it is they're doing, right?
They don't
So I
plan their
love
day.
this.
They don't plan it.
Yes.
And to me, it's like if you don't plan your day, you don't plan your life. It's like getting in the car and not knowing where you're going to go.
Yeah.
It's like if you plan a trip to go to Europe, for example, we were talking about Europe before we got on the show. You plan the destination, where you're going to go, how long you're going to spend there, you book your hotels. A business and your life is exactly the same. You need to map out your life and your day, and it could be as simple as some of the leaders that I work with. It's having a look at where are your pain points in your life. So have a look at the areas that are not working for you, and what is it that you need to do in that space. So setting an intention could be as simple as, let's say a leader has a team, and sometimes I get the leader will say to me, I don't know how to influence my team. Okay. So then we start digging deep, and it could be as simple as this particular leader needs to listen more. Okay. And so this leader could set an intention today. I'm going to listen more and talk less. So I'm going to listen 80% of my day, and 20% of my day, I might just ask thought provoking questions, but that's all I'm going to do, and see what happens. See the shift, see the changes that take place in your day. So setting an intention is very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And what's really in line with this also is this concept that you talk about of giving away your power. This is also one of the big reasons that I find why people sort of go through the days without actually doing anything. So can you share with us what is this idea of giving your power away?
I love this question. So giving your power away, I used to say this all the time. If you want to empower people, give them power. But it doesn't mean give them your power. And I've just learned this myself, because for me, it was all about boundaries. And so when we're talking about power, I was giving so much of my power away in this way. So, Max, if someone would say, Catherine, can you do this? I would say, yes. I'm the yes woman. I was the yes woman, right? Giving my power away is also not just giving my time and energy, but also thoughts. So if I had a conversation with someone and it made me feel not quite right, even thinking about that person and thinking about the conversation, and even, and I'm talking about marinating on the conversation, right? And staying stuck in the conversation, that's another way of giving your power away. You can give your power away by just giving something too much attention that is not worthy of your time. So I look at it this way. The way that I help myself hang on to my boundaries is to make sure that I'm not giving my power away, is look at it this way. When something happens, I'll always say, where is my energy right now? Is it outside externally? So when my energy is externally, which is I'm focusing externally, I'm giving my power away. When my power is within me, so my energy is within me, and I always say, drop into your heart, because when we are, and we are, everyone's different, but we are very much of the mind. We think, we analyze, we overprocess. When you drop into your heart, it's a different energy. So power can sit, some people prefer to drop in their gut, whatever, but you need to be in your body. That is how you hang on to your power. When you are externally focused about, let's even say, when you're talking about fear of judgment, fear of what people might say, fear of abandonment, and fear of rejection, you're giving your power away. You're giving your power away to fear, limiting beliefs, doubt, all of these things, you're giving your power away. Doubt, fear, all of these act as a wall, as a barrier of who we want to be, our authentic self. So it's really important. And this comes back to being conscious. Where is my power? Sometimes when I think about something and I go, I'll ask myself the question of, Catherine, do you have any control over this? No, I am giving away my power to stuff that I have no control over. Because the only thing I do have control over is what I think, what I feel, what I eat, what I drink, the things that are in my body, I have control over. I am giving myself power. And you find, and I find, you'll find there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are burnt out, stressed, overwhelmed, can't get into, like, wonder why they work so hard and their business is not just landing for them, because they are giving their power away. When you start being more conscious and realizing, and power is giving away time, not just energy, time. When you give away your time, so for example, I've just made a decision when I was just this week, I write a lot and I love writing, and I do podcasts, and um, I'll do anything to give to people. But the thing is, when you give so much away, you're disempowering yourself because there's no exchange, right? There's no exchange. So the other thing I was looking at is, like, how, if I'm giving all this power away, I'm always feeling burnout and tired. What is it that I need to let go of? And so letting go of doing this work and be more smarter with my work rather than working harder, as a way to hold my power within. So, I mean, this, we could talk about this all day. There's so many ways, but these are kind of the most common ways to hang on to power.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like really there's a multitude of ways in which we can lose our power, or on the positive side, also gain power back. For those of our listeners, they're realizing, hey, I'm giving so much of my power, of my energy, of my time, of my focus to other things, whether that's other people that are sort of trying to make demands on your time, whether that's certain tasks that really are unnecessary, whether it's watching news too much. And I've seen a lot of people with that, right? They're just constantly 5 hours a day, whatever, watching the news, reading the news, obsessing over that and giving that power away to that. And so the
Yes.
way to really take that back then is like you say, that presence, that awareness, that consciousness of where our time actually goes, right? And one of
Yeah.
the practices that really changed that for me was really literally tracking every single minute of my day, just for a week, right? I
Great.
just tracked every single minute of my day, trying to figure out where my time, my attention actually goes.
Yeah.
And when I did it, I was shocked, right? I was
Yeah.
shocked at just wasting so much time in between tasks. It's so many tiny little things that really do not serve any kind of grand purpose, right? They're
Yeah.
just sort of about getting through the day. And so this
Yeah.
really great tool, or just like you say, right, that meditation, that visualization, setting that intention,
Yeah.
all of that really helps you clarify where you want to spend the time.
Yeah. And the best way, and you talked about the news is a prime example of giving your power away. Because if you stay in your center, and staying in your center is like, I don't watch the news, I don't read the news. Staying in your center is not being pulled out of your center by the news, social media. I know people have gone down the rabbit hole with social media, like YouTube, you name it. I call it the black hole. All social media is a black hole to me. So to me,
Yep.
it's like, look at where are you investing your time. And I love it when I work with some entrepreneurs. I say, Catherine, I don't have the time. I'm like, okay, let's document your time just for 7 days, and let's see where you invest your time. And some of the stuff will be Facebook that will come up. I'll say, time yourself when you go on Facebook. They might spend 20, 30 minutes a day, some more. Netflix, binging on Netflix, whatever that may be. And when they realize that, I always say 8 hours sleep, 8 hours of work, and 8 hours of your time. And then that 8 hours is,
Yes.
what are you going to do with your time? For me, I'd rather feed my brain with reading. I'll watch some things, but the things that are educational for me. So I'm very conscious about how I empower myself.
Yeah, I love this because I absolutely agree with this idea that there's always enough time to get the things done that matter most in your life. If only you're willing to sort of cut out all of the stuff that really isn't essential. And yeah, by tracking that, writing down how much time you
Yeah.
actually spend on all the stuff that really doesn't matter, you realize like I have so much time available to do the things that really would move my life forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is the best way. I mean, and you can do it so easy. You can just get a like Excel spreadsheet, the Monday to Sunday, all the times, like every half an hour, and then actually document what you do. And it will blow your mind when you, I mean, like you said, you've done it and you tracked your time. It's amazing how much time you can give yourself back when you do an exercise like that. So it's worth 7 days of your life.
Absolutely. Now, Catherine, one of the big things that comes up when people attempt to make these new changes is resistance, right?
Mm.
That's that internal feeling maybe of anxiety, of fear, of stress that inevitably comes up whenever we attempt something new. Or maybe it's even outside people, right? It's friends, it's family, it's our boss, our coworkers. They're like, "You've never, worked out before. Like, why are you doing that now?" So how do people deal with sort of this resistance that inevitably comes up when you're trying to reinvent yourself?
I love that question. Resistance is a sign that when you ever feel resistance, that is actually the sign for you to lean in and do the very thing that you are afraid of. So, when I work with high performing leaders, they are constantly seeking ways to make themselves feel uncomfortable. And that's why it's really important about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So, the resistance is your your ego, your unconscious mind, your limiting beliefs saying, no, 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 Catherine, don't make the change because your brain actually doesn't like to change. So it's holding you back, right? And so what you need to do is actually let go of the resistance and do it anyway, because that is how we grow. That is how we evolve. That is how we bust out of our stories and those limiting beliefs. The resistance is some people have visceral effects, like, they start shaking. I've worked with groups for public speaking. And by the time they finish the program, they're like, because public speaking is up there, one of the scariest things you can do. Sometimes
Yeah.
people say public speaking is scarier than death, right?
Yeah.
But then they do this, and I get them to do like a 2-minute talk in front of the class, right? On every time we catch up, and they're shaking their boots, and it's like, what is the fear telling you? And once again, it's fear of a judgment, fear of rejection, fear of making a mistake, whatever that may be. And then I say, okay, let's park fear to the side. And we put a little cross on the floor and say, let fear there. Now step into your authentic self and speak from your heart. So because resistance lives in the mind, resistance is the stories. Catherine, don't do that. You're going to fear. You're going to make a fool of yourself. And we've done this test when people used to speak and say soon as we bring light to, okay, you're using filler words, right? So they'd go up on stage and go, I can't use don't use don't use well, just the fact you're saying don't use your mind is focused on the because your unconscious mind speaks the language of pictures, right? So if you're saying don't do that, it doesn't hear the don't, it forms a picture of you standing there going arm. So what we do is get them to drop into their heart, let go of the fear. So the fear is there. So once again, it's creating separation from the resistance and then standing in your authentic self. And now what are you doing differently? And when they're speaking from their heart and being their authentic self, it's so different. So any form of resistance, whatever resistance, whether it's a fear of asking somebody else out, a fear of asking for a pay rise, whatever that may be, whatever that fear is, it's what you need to step into and lean into. The moment you do, it actually dissipates. And the more that you do this, the more that you step into the resistance, the more you will evolve and grow. And then the resistance will almost, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I have less resistance now, knowing that it has no power over me. Understanding the resistance. When I feel resistance, it means, Catherine, go for it. So when I do, and high performing leaders do that, when they feel the resistance, they go, this is what I need to do. And when they become complacent, they actually look for things that make them feel uncomfortable. They actually look at ways that I can feel resistance as a way to grow and evolve.
Yeah, Catherine, I love this so much because I truly fundamentally believe that resistance and fears and anxieties and facing all of these things that we really don't want to face is the key to change and is the key to personal and professional self-growth. And so to me it comes back to this intention, right? To being intentional about actually seeking out that difficulty, right? Because sometimes life isn't that difficult and we deliberately seek that out to get to that next level of our lives, right?
Mm.
And then also to when we experience that anxiety or we experience that fear, to deliberately changing our focus,
Yeah.
right? Like you're saying, right? Away from that fear, away from thinking about all of the stuff that could potentially go wrong when you approach that random stranger or when you give that talk, to what can go right, like what beautiful thing can happen out of this, right? You can form this incredible new romantic relationship, or you can give the presentation that's going to change someone's life, whatever that is. And
Yeah.
sometimes just that little focus, right?
Yeah.
Like that little shift in
Mm.
perspective really changes the meaning and therefore the whole emotional reaction that you get.
Yeah.
So I
And
love what he's saying here.
the other thing you talked about, anxiety also creates a resistance. And so when we look at where is your thinking now, it's always, so anxiety, there's research that shows anxiety is when we're stuck in the future and we think too much about the future, and depression is when we're stuck in the past. And so you can see that a lot of the times when we have resistance or things that are holding us back, we're actually not being present. And when you think about being present, there really the now is all that exists. And so when we want to make those changes, it starts with the now. We do exercises with future projection. So the future projection is how do we create new belief system? And when we can activate all the senses as if it's taken place, what are you experiencing? What are you feeling? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? Then we come back into the now. When we do these kind of exercises, it helps let go of the resistance, because once again, the mind can't tell the difference between what is real and what is not real. But what it does do is when we can actually start believing that there is this new self, what happens is the brain has uh, uh, can't think of what it's called. It's going to say prefrontal cortex, but it's not the prefrontal cortex. But what it does, it's the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system activates because it's seen the future, it's experienced it, it's felt it. And so then what it does, it seeks evidence to prove that it's real. A lot of professional sports people use this technology of future pacing, visualizing as if and imagining as if, now activating all the senses and then coming back into the self to actually activate the reticular activating system.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful tool, really, right? To go into the future, create that belief, and then bring it back into the present moment and learn really how to embody the future now, essentially, right? To feel confident before you've gone to an Olympic final, right, and won that game, right? To feel confident before you go into the interview, right? To feel happy before your life is this picture perfect fairy dream tale, right?
That's it. Because and you said embody. That's why that's really important. You need to embody it, because that's why you need to be in your body to actually live and breathe this belief system. It's really important. It doesn't live in the mind. It sits in the body, and that is how we bring forward these new belief systems. Is when we can actually shift the dimension here, build our future, and bring it forward to then attract those things to us.
Absolutely love that. Now, Catherine, what do you think is the biggest thing that usually holds people back from really transforming themselves?
The biggest thing, oh, wow, it's very case to case basis. But I think that some of the biggest things that hold people back is the fear. I think fear is, and that's why I say it's false evidence appearing real. So the fear of failure, even fear of success. I see a lot of entrepreneurs really fear of success, fear of standing in light purely because of fear of being judged, fear of rejections. People are not going to like me. They're not going to think I'm good enough. Um, But there's so many. It's some of the things that sometimes are holding people back is, I'm not worthy of this promotion. I'm not worthy of this money. I'm not worthy of this relationship. So I think it is a case to case basis. It's not really one thing, but I guess the biggest thing is, I'm not good enough. I am not worthy. Fear of success, fear of failure, because then underneath all of those, you'll see there'll be the fear of rejection, judgment, and so forth.
Yeah, I love that. Now, if you could give our listeners just one challenge or one action step to take away from this and really start applying today, what would be that one thing?
Do the deep work. So I think that doing the deep work, and I think people shun away from doing the deep work because they don't want to face in or lean into those shadow aspects of themselves. And, the more light that you can bring to those shadow aspects, which, this is where the limiting beliefs, the fears resides, the doubts resides, whatever that may be, or who we think we are, our identity. Um, the more we do that deep work, and I'm talking about, if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, if you want to be successful in a relationship, if you want to be successful as a business person, whatever that may be, doing the deep work will help you be successful in those areas. Otherwise, these patterns of whatever keeps going on in your life will keep happening until you do the deep work.
Yeah, so important. Now, before I ask my final question, where can listeners find you online?
So you can go to my website. I think everything's on there. It's catherineplano.com. And I've got free stuff on there. I've got all my blogs on there. I write and I write a lot about this stuff, a lot of around leadership as well. And also podcasts. I talk to the most amazing people all over the world who share their stories. So yeah, catherineplano.com.
Awesome. Now, what does it mean for you to max out your life?
Max out my life?
Yes.
What does it mean to max out my life? I think to max out my life is actually to live my life to the fullest potential and to be my authentic self as often as possible, because I know that's something I'm still working through. I haven't perfected it, but it is something that is an intention and it is a focus. That is how I would max out my life.
Love that. Catherine, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so very much, Max. It's been awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you gained some valuable ideas, tips, tools, tricks, mindsets, belief systems that will hopefully inspire you to take your life to the next level. At the end of the day, guys, it's all about application. The only thing that's going to set you apart tomorrow from where you are today is how much action you take with those ideas that you gained. And so I really want to challenge you at this point to, not just listen to this passively, to not just consume this, passively, just think about other things, but to really take those lessons, take those ideas that you just gained and start applying them to your lives, to really start taking action and sprinting towards those goals and those dreams that you have in your life. Now, guys, at this point, I want to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider heading over to iTunes and leaving a review, as that helps me really grow the show and reach more people, impact even more people around the world. If you have a family member, a friend, a loved one maybe, that you think could benefit from this content, please consider, sharing it with them, forwarding to them, as that helps us really build a community of like-minded people that are all about maxing out their lives. Now, guys, with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in today. I really, really appreciate it. Stay strong and see you tomorrow.